Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome to the Oriental Café, a podcast where we will sit at the same table to explore the fascinating worlds of Egyptian dance, personal empowerment, and halas, life. I'm your host, Joana Saahirah, world-renowned Oriental dancer, teacher, choreographer, and author, the creator of the pioneering Joana Saahirah's World and Joana Saahirah's Online Dance School. I will meet you at the Oriental Café every 2 weeks, alone or with a guest, sharing intimate yet universal conversations. In agreement or disagreement, we will create bridges and inspire each other, because the world is only one, and so is our human soul. Ready to fall in love? Yalla bina! Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Oriental Café podcast. I am super excited to have Maya Youssef with us. Maya, you have been a very delightful surprise to me because I did not know you. I got to know your name through students of my school. And I had never seen someone teaching music and concepts that are very dear to dancers in such a fun, dynamic, confident way. It really makes dancers fall in love with music on a deeper level. And I think that's one of the voids, if you ask me, of the process of learning dance, is that everyone is so hyper-focused on how to move, but they forget that the process of dance starts with listening and knowing how to listen and how to understand and feel what you are listening. So I want to welcome you into the podcast. Of course, for the ones who don't know you yet, you are a very well-known kanun player. You have your kanun with you.
Yes, I do. Thank you for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. You are a musician, a teacher, a composer, a kanun specialist. You have studied, and we will talk about that later, with very special teachers. And you are currently living in London, but you are from Syria. So before I ask you about Syria and what is your feeling and your memory of your country now that you live abroad in a very westernized country, very serious, very rational, very ordered, very structured, you know. But before we go there, I would like you to present yourself as you see yourself at this point. How do you feel like presenting yourself at this point? What do you do and how do you do it?
In a nutshell, I am a humble servant through music. Whether it's through my compositions when I am on stage, my music is there as a prayer for the world to heal, to embrace our higher selves. If I am a teacher, I am here to help my students embody that highest version of themselves, even though they don't believe in it. I am a radical thinker that I'm here to disrupt how people relate to music, because I want music to be accessible to everyone. Because if you love Arabic music, it's yours, full stop. So this is how I present myself.
Okay, you mentioned a prayer and the higher version of yourself. So let me catch that even before we move forward. And this is what happens in the podcast. This is why when I told you, as I do with every guest, I will send you, a structure of what we will be speaking about. But we always go astray because, I like to pay attention and people say interesting stuff. So let's stop there. What do you mean by a prayer while you're playing, in the craft of playing the kanun? And what do you mean a higher version of themselves? Can you break those down, please?
Sure. This is a very vast, thing to talk about. But in a nutshell, music to me is how I pray. Okay, so music is my spiritual practice. Whether I am teaching, whether I'm performing, it's all the same thing, And this is not a new thing. All, ancient cultures use music to heal, to bring people to their center, to their truth. And I am just a continuation of this ancient tradition that has, been going on for thousands and thousands of years. And but everything changes when you have an intention behind it. Even if you're sweeping the streets outside, and you're doing it with an intention of, oh please, I would like to make this a better street for my loved ones to walk in. It changes, and then something as powerful as sound and music, it just becomes so powerful. And because I'm a lady with many hats, I perform on stage, I teach, I compose, and I see that effect every single day in my life, in the eyes of the people who I interact with, whether they're an audience in a concert or whether they're students in a classroom. And in terms of my students embracing their higher self, it's simple. So what is that impossible dream that you think that is impossible, but it's still ringing in your heart? It's still like, oh, you feel that there's this calling in your heart that you are meant to experience it, but you tell yourself, I'll never be able to get there. Whether it is, be able to recognize, a Makam by ear. You're listening to a song and you think, oh my gosh, I can hear everything. Or whether it's, being able to play a Taksim when you're told that's a mission impossible. Whether it is to master the kanun when you're told that it's the most difficult instrument in the world. It's that, it's that. And that will be different to each person. But I've seen that transformation in my students, and it's a mighty powerful thing, and it's an honor to be able to facilitate that.
Okay. Oh my God. If I grab on what you said, we will be here recording for a week.
I know.
And yes, and I will forget all the questions I have in mind because I'm listening to you, and so many things are coming into my head. One of them being in Arabic culture. At least this is my feeling, right? So I lived and started my career in Egypt for a decade. And I was working in Oman. I know you were working in Oman as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was in the festival for Sultan Qaboos. So I came with an Egyptian troupe and I was in jail for a day. Stories.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. And I was in Lebanon. I mean, just to give you an overall view of my experience, I always had the feeling that in Arabic countries, there is a direct connection between sound and spirituality and the spiritual life, a religious experience. May that be through the calling for the prayer 5 times a day and the limbo between Quranic recitation and singing.
Oh, yeah.
You can clearly see in classical Arabic music, like in Kulthum, just to mention a very cliche name that everyone knows. When you hear Kulthum, sometimes I'm not sure if I'm listening to her singing or reciting something. There is an undefinition, there is a border that is not clear between what the muezzin says when he calls people for prayer. No, Allah,
yes.
Akbar, and then what is singing and what is the playing of an instrument like the kanun. I think the borders are very blurred. So I always felt that sound in Arabic culture had that elevation purpose, and it's not exclusively applicable to Arabic people. No. It's universal. And that's one of the things I noticed when I joined your events, the events you've been promoting to share the course that you're preparing. And we're going to talk about that at the end of the episode. I noticed that you bring that universality to the table, which is something I really appreciate, because for many dancers and musicians of the West, there has been sold an idea that Arabic culture, music, dance is very hermetic. If you're not from the culture, you will never get it.
Oh my God.
You will never feel it.
This is nonsense. Nonsense.
Yeah. And of course, there are cultural aspects that you need to know. I think specifically about Egyptian dance. Once I learned how to speak Arabic, which is a code, a language is a code, of course, my depth of understanding grew exponentially. Or once you understand the culture, the mentality, the tradition, the tempo, yani, the of daily life, even, how women move in the street, the cadence, right?
Yeah.
There is yani, an entire world that is very typical of that specific culture. But at the bottom, there is an universality that escapes most of us. And when you teach the Maqamat to dancers, I am absolutely sure this is one of the main obstacles in their heads. I will
Oh
never,
yeah.
because I'm not from the culture. I'm not
Mm,
from there. And I've been told this is far away, it's
yeah.
distant, it's hermetic, it's too difficult, and I will
Hmm.
never get it. So I will
Yeah.
leave it to the specialists. What do you think about that? Is it universal? And what makes it universal? What makes Arabic music universal?
Okay, so I believe all types of music were are universal. They're just basically different facets of the soul of humankind. It's different expressions of the soul of humankind, and so therefore, I just don't believe that this is exclusive to these people and that is exclusive to people. I think so I just do not buy into this story at all. Yeah, and it's very important for me to, and I'm aware that Makam is a taboo. It's like everybody freaks out. You just say the Makam, I say see you later, I'm gonna run away with my life. you know
Yeah.
and this is not just for dancers. It's for everybody who loves Arabic music. So in my recent social media posts, and I have been completely blown away by the amount of comments that say, okay, so this is the first time I'm hearing somebody explain Makam to me in a way that I understand, that it doesn't feel like decoding, a secret ancient language. And this is part of my mission. It's very, 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 very important. So, no, Makam is doable. Makam can be fun even when you have the right method. So if you have been told that you can't get it just because you are not an Arab, this is utter nonsense, and it's time for us to liberate ourselves out of that, idea, because it's broken. Nobody needs it. It's not true.
Now let me jump into Syria. You are from Damascus. You live in London currently. What is your memory of growing up in Damascus, or memories, the things that stuck to your head the most? And what do you miss about it the most?
Oh gosh, it's very hard to put it in a sentence or a paragraph. It's a very visceral feeling, okay? Because the Syria is an ancient land. You know, the first alphabet came from Syria. The first musical transcription came from Syria. The first dictionary came from Syria. The first, I can go on. So, and this is not just so. In a way, I feel I am a continuation of my ancestors who started all of this. Like in the first score that you can find in the Museum of Damascus. It's a song. It's a hymn from a woman to the goddess of fertility. And this is how they prayed. So I am no different. In that sense. And Syria is Syria because of its people, because of its culture, because of its sounds. If you're walking in an old, if you're walking by Al Umayyad mosque in old Damascus, you're gonna be shopping in an antique shop, listening to the munshideen, the master reciters in a mosque, while you're walking down the road, while you're having your tea in Nofera Cafe. There is something different that you cannot put in words. It's a soul of a country. It's a soul of a place. That cannot be put, in one sentence, in one thing. It's all of it. And to me, it's really incredible how how music can, even though I am not in Syria, music can take me there just like that. And it's not just me. It's like, for instance, I'll just play you a tune that to Syrians, it embodies the essence of home. Yeah. So if I play it to a Syrian or anybody from the Arab world, they will start to either cry or laugh or both together. I've seen it. So like this. Yam al Sham. So if I'm gonna play Yam al Sham, I hear I've heard comments over and over. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm home. I can smell the smell of jasmine and lemon in my grandma's garden. I feel like I'm home, and it's mind blowing to me that sound can invoke an essence of home, no matter where you are. So even though I'm not there, I am there because I carry Syria with me through my music.
Got it. Sound is powerful. Just a while ago, I received a guest at the podcast in the first season who has become a sheikh in a Sufi. Yeah, in Sufi. He's from England, can you imagine? And then he moved to Egypt, to Luxor, to the West Bank. And he's been living there for more than 30 years, and he got involved with the Sufis and he became a sheikh. He's incredible. And he was just sharing with us how sound was so important in Sufi and how in ancient Egypt, there are statues with huge ears, abnormally big ears, representing a spiritual initiation.
Yeah.
There is, I think, an underestimated power in sound. We don't realize how powerful it is.
Absolutely.
Now, in the line of what you were sharing, during those years I was working and living in Cairo, a fado singer from my land came to the Cairo Opera House. Very well-known fado singer. So I told my musicians, guys, I'm buying tickets to everyone. You're not going to understand the thing, but let's go to the Cairo
Love
Opera.
fado. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
So we went, and I went with my musicians, and I wanted to keep, I wanted to keep my posture because, it's my musicians. I don't want to break down and cry and make a fool out of myself, right?
Yeah.
I was sure I was gonna be composed and show them a bit of my culture, So even before the singer started to sing, the Portuguese guitar, which is from the family of the oud and the flamenco guitars, it's very specific from Portuguese fado. The moment they started to play, the curtain was closed. I burst into tears.
Oh, bless you.
I made a fool out of myself in front of my musicians. Juju, El Akbar, what happened? I said, nothing. Oh my God. Because in a second, I was back to my country through the chords of the guitar, the Portuguese guitar. So I totally get what you mean. And I agree, it is so powerful. Now, I think that the sensation that you describe in Syria is something that I experience, again, in all Arabic countries I've been to. And I think it has to do with tradition and the keeping of tradition. You feel like you are in the present, but you're also in the past. It's like a moment in time, like it stops in time. There's no future because everything got frozen in one specific moment and it hasn't changed. Just recently, I went with my husband and our family to Morocco just for vacation. And, we were sitting down and listening in the souk in Essaouira by the sea. And I got that feeling of eternity again. I told my husband, can you feel? This is something you don't get in Western countries because we're so obsessed with the future.
Right.
We're so obsessed with the future. Here, time stopped. And because it stopped, you can feel eternity. Can you feel it? Of course, everyone thinks I'm crazy. But my point is, there is a specific feeling in countries like Syria or Egypt or even Lebanon has suffered so much anyway, in Syria too as well, of course, that I think we don't get in the West because we're not such keepers and lovers of tradition and of the past. We're so much more oriented to the future. Now, let's go to the past. How did you fall in love with Arabic music and when?
Okay, so I grew up in a household full of books and music. These were the two main components. there were definitely many than humans, more than humans in the house. And basically, my dad would bring, very eclectic kinds of music, everything from Western classical to, contemporary to jazz to. But my mum would listen to the classics of Arabic music. She was obsessed with Kulthum, Abdul Halim, Abdul Wahab, Fairuz, all Sabah Fakhri, Saad Muhammad, all these ancient, very important names in the golden age of Arabic music. And so I had like an amazing, background of music to draw in, but particularly because, we had listening sessions every day, every night. And so I was just tapping and singing all the time. And so my parents, just so I can do something with it, so I can, stop singing, and they just put me in a music institute to channel that.
Yes.
And for 2 years, you had to study music theory. It was hardcore when I look back, really. And then after 2 years, when I was 8, I had to pick one instrument. And basically, my parents in the beginning, they were like, there was a hot debate, like, which one should Maya pick? And in the end, they reached the conclusion that I should play the violin, which I have taken on reluctantly. And one day, my mum was taking me to my music theory lesson, and I was at the back seat of a taxi in a hot summer's day in Damascus, and the taxi driver turns on the radio, and I think it was Ansak. And I was like, what is this instrument? This is the instrument that I want to play. 8-year-old little me. And he laughed. He said, oh, this is the kanun. You are a girl. You'll never play it because this is a man's instrument. I was furious with him. And I told him, I will play it. You will see. My mum was reading her book in the corridor. I walk into the music theory class. And that night, the head of the institute, Ustaz Baligh Swaid, walks in to announce the opening of a kanun class. And of course, I ran after the class, signed up, and my mom was like, "What did you just do?" I was like, I need to learn kanun." Even though her jaw, was dropped to the floor, I had a kanun waiting for me on the kitchen table 2 days after. So it was like 5 times my size. I couldn't even reach the high octaves, and it has been my friend ever since. So yeah, this is how it all started.
Okay, why the violin?
I don't know. I think it's interesting because in Arab countries now, of course, that there is Arab countries have been through a notion of being fascinated with the West and wanting to be like the West because, like even Yahya Haqqi, a famous Egyptian writer who wrote a whole book that its title is Hayya bina ila al-concert. Let's go to the concert hall, in which he is glorifying the experience of going to a concert and listening to a symphony orchestra perform and enjoying the quiet of the audience, where the audience is not shouting Allah all the time. So I think and therefore Arabic instruments became less cool, quote unquote. So I think that was a product of that, but I don't know. I could go back and ask my parents why.
Yeah, I deduced it had something to do with that. It's like a Western cool thing to do, as opposed to going directly to an Arabic instrument like the kanun. Yeah. Why did you mention that was a tradition of men? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure.
Of course, most of the well-known players are men, and when we see Kulthum and the famous players who were part of her orchestra, they were all men. But can you elaborate? Was that a big thing, like to be a girl and studying the kanun and becoming a kanun professional player? What did that mean?
Well, I just didn't care less, I just couldn't care because I was like, I felt that I was enwrapped in love and I couldn't see anything else. I didn't care, even though everybody was like, ooh, a girl playing kanun. There were many eyebrows raised and many comments made and all of that. But I just thought like, I just had the support of my parents. I was madly in love. That's all I could care about, you know. But it was not comfortable, you know, at many points because you know because you're a woman, there is a notion of like some people like made comments like, can you play a Taksim, Maya? Shall I play a Taksim for you? Taksim, of course, is the pinnacle of Arabic music, and I'm like, no, thank you. So there have been like, I really had to work really, really hard, 14 to 18 hours of practice to, you know, to just show how committed I am to my craft. And unfortunately, until today, if we are thinking statistics, you know, not personal opinion, female kanun players are, you know, 1-2%.
Yeah.
If I'm optimistic, versus the rest of males. And I'm talking about a professional kanun player who's making her living from music. This is very, very, you know, it's a stark difference.
Yeah.
And yeah, it needs to change, really.
Yeah. In Egypt, most, I would say 99% of the musicians, for sure, all the musicians I worked with were men. I mean, it was never a question in my mind. Should I hire a woman? Because there was no woman to hire. It was a male's business and that's it. And people accepted, like, women dance, men play the instruments. That's it. Accepted. Yeah. What makes the kanun so special? What is it about that particular instrument that you still find so particular and so magical? So now we're building a bridge between that 8-year-old child who fell in love and said, no, I want a kanun. And you heard Ansek and you say, oh my God, this is it. And now, having experienced all that you have experienced, being an adult woman with so much knowledge on your back, what is it that you still find of particularly magical about the kanun?
I think there is a really lovely story from 1001 Nights that answers this. So the story goes that Abu Nasr al-Farabi, who's a real person, by the way, he's a musicologist, philosopher, and he wrote the most important treatise about Arabic music called Al-Musiq al-Kabir. He basically improved on the instrument, and the story goes that he was just working on the kanun to improve it. He believed that it possessed some magical powers, so to test it, he took it to a gathering. He played something very jolly that maybe sounded like this. Everybody was dancing. And then he started to play something that was very sorrowful, that maybe sounded like this. Everybody was crying. And then he played something that was very mellow, that maybe sounded like this. Everybody fell asleep. And basically, even though this is a fairy tale, it just demonstrates how powerful the kanun is in expressing human emotion, you know? And it's just it's an instrument that possesses an infinite amount of colors, you know? So you have and you have the really punchy that goes directly to God's. And you know, and it's just an instrument that it's like an infinite well that, you know, the deeper you go, the more you discover. So yeah, it's like the yin and the yang. It's like a universe in of itself. So how can I not love it?
Yeah. One thing you didn't know is that I had to control myself not to burst crying again and to make a fool out of myself again. I'm an expert at making a fool out of myself, you know, because I feel too much. So it's very good for my work, but not so good for normal life, where I burst into laughter or tears all the time.
Well, we are
Oh,
human at the end, so it
how
doesn't matter really.
beautiful, Maya,
Yeah.
how beautiful, really. And what I feel is that the kanun pulls the soul strings.
Hmm.
It gets into your system. It's very sneaky and
Hmm.
invasive in the best possible way. Yeah, yeah, very invasive. It's like wine getting into your system and doing things to you. And yeah, and allowing you to remember what makes us human.
Mm. That's
It's
beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah, but it's literally how I feel. And when dancers, of course, I'm coming back to dancers because that's my job. But when dancers work on their craft, I think again, I commented this when we started talking, and I'm going to bring it back. One of the most difficult things to do is to relate to the music and allow the music to trigger you, allow the music to touch
Mm.
you, because we're so desensitized, we have lost sensibility, we have
Yep.
lost the ability to feel emotion, we have lost the ability to empathize, we have, collectively speaking, lost track of our hearts, because basically there's no time for that. I mean, I had a
Mm.
student who told me, Joanna, who has the time for that?
Oh
Who has the
wow.
time for feeling? I mean, I certainly don't, And I think, okay, wow, yeah. What I feel it's so magical is that the kanun, like it or not, awakens what remains human in the listener.
Oh wow, that's beautiful. I got
Yeah,
tingles.
yeah. And if you are a dancer, multiply that, right? Because
Mm.
one thing is listening, another thing is listening and dancing to what you're listening,
Yeah.
which is the sensation multiplied, right? So it is absolutely gorgeous. And it takes us to one of the aspects that you have become known for, and one of the things that you have been teaching and investing in, which is the Makam, the Maqamat, the art of Taksim, and also Tarab. They are related. So let's break them down for our listeners.
Yes.
Let's start with the basics. What the hell does that mean, right? Because a lot of dancers have heard about the Makam and the Taksim and the Tarab, والسلطنة, Nashwa, and so many terms that people throw around, but they don't really know what that means or what those mean. Can you explain for someone who is not related with the subject, doesn't know what that means? Can you present those concepts?
Sure. So, every single song you have danced to is made out of a maqam. Okay? So, you cannot disconnect any song that you dance to from a maqam. I got a question the other day. Is this song a maqam? Yes. Every single thing you dance to is made of maqam. What is maqam? Maqam, you can think of it as the alphabet of Arabic music. Yeah. So, and there are 9 of those. Okay, there are 9 pieces of those. I call them, because I like to play, I created a system to teach Makam with Lego, because it's very helpful for people to see a visual representation. So if I am to bring, say, I got here Hijaz. Okay, so that's one of the 9 pieces of the alphabet. Okay, a maqam in general is basically, it's a chain of these 9 pieces. Okay, it's not a scale. Lots of people go like, this is a scale, but to be honest with you, 99% of what is said in theory books is incorrect. Because if we go back to Abu Nasr Farabi said a very important thing that changed my life. He said, the theory needs to follow practice, not the
Yeah.
other way around. Theory
Mhm.
needs to follow practice. But if you look at theory, and I have read every single Makam book on the planet, there's a complete disconnection. It's like It's like this is a world and this is a world, and they're not related to, they're not mirroring each other at all. So when I decided to listen, I found that music in practice is a chain. So this is not an invention that I made up. Just listen to the music, and I found that happen time and time again. And a maqam, you can think, when we build a maqam, you can think of it as a tree. So you have the root. So this is Hijaz. So that's the root of the maqam. This is how it sounds like. Now there's something called a below the root. I'm just getting my Lego right here. Below the root is kind of, so the heart of the maqam is in the root. Below the root is basically its job is to assist the root. Yeah. So this is how it sounds like. This is ras. Now, like any tree, a maqam will have a branch or multiple branches. Okay? But usually the root and below the root are fixed. So in the case of Hijaz, you have two branches. You have Nahawan and Rast. So this is how Nahawan sounds like. And this is how Rast sounds like. Okay? So the maqam is really, it's a chain or a maqam tree. This is how I would say, how I put that in practice. And since we have built Hijaz, let's just talk about an example of a very famous song in maqam Hijaz. So let's say Ana fi Intizarak. Yeah. So I'm just gonna put these Lego pieces down, and I will walk you through it. So this is the first note in the maqam da. That's the most important note. This is the first note in the root, and this is your anchor. You're gonna hear this da na na na. There's a lot of repetition of it. So this is the Nahawan. Here it is. Nahawan. Now listen. What is this? This is a shift to rast. So this is a shift. And it just happens in that second. So this is a very brief shift to rast. And because I switched from Nahawan to rast, what did I do? I created Tarab, because this one is a building block that is dark in character, and this one is a Tarab machine. Rast is a Tarab machine. And therefore we save it only melodically for these sneaky little moments, like flash, ping, Tarab, and we go back. Yeah? And that contrast between light and dark, which you can think of it in terms of tension and release. Of course, it doesn't mean good or bad.
Yes.
It's just a very high level view of how I categorize the character and emotion of a maqam. Of course, I go really deep into this in my program, but this is a very high level view. So that shift from light to dark or dark to light is what creates Tarab. So let's continue. If we go to the main theme, so no, that's Nahawand. This is the Hijaz root. Nahawand. And now Ras. Now Ras is the moment of Tarab. And now we're going to shift to another building block that is dark in character, that is Hijaz. So that's that contrast between Ras to Hijaz. Oh my gosh, it goes directly to your guts. So if I go one step back from the Ras, here it is. And now another this is called talween. This is like a random note that doesn't belong to any certain building blocks, but it's usually done to bring a flash of dark to create tarab. Here it is. So, and do you see how fast it happens? So if I play the whole thing again, it's just the whole thing is going to take, what, 10 seconds? Less than 10 seconds. But there's a constant shifting in Arabic music. You know, constant dance between light and dark. And the purpose of that, it's the main tool to create that tarab, that sultana that you're speaking of.
Yeah.
You know, are there other tools? Yes. But this is the main tool. So hopefully this is giving you just a bit of insight of how the music works.
It's, you know, it's contrast, constant contrast.
Yeah,
And I think that
absolutely.
somehow, you know, for musicians, I'm not so sure. I think that trained musicians will get it more easily, but for dancers, even for native dancers, one of the hardest things to do is precisely to be able to ride those waves as they come. And the wave is never steady. Now we go up, then we go down, then we go in, then we go out, then we stop, then we rush, then, oh my God, what is happening? It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's like a mood, يعني مزاج, إحساس that is changing all the time. So you're either very present and available to ride those waves as they come. You're either permeable and available to go to those different places in such a short time. As you mentioned, I mean, you broke it down, but
Seconds.
it's seconds of the music. So,
Yeah.
or you miss the ride that the music is providing. So, you know, this is one of the aspects when I teach Egyptian dance that it's like, it's a struggle because it's difficult to teach. It hasn't been taught because, again, the tradition of teaching dance is movement, choreographies, and that's it. And because if we are not, on a personal level, if we're not open to those different kinds of emotions, those different flavors, those different corners of our soul, we're not going to get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and yeah, absolutely.
You can identify intellectually, but one thing is knowing what I'm listening to intellectually, and another thing is feeling it and being
Absolutely.
able to embody it and to bring it out, right?
Yeah.
How important is the understanding and the feeling of the Makam to dancers? What do you think? Is that important?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, hello, it's music is what brings life to your dance. So absolutely it is important. And look, a lot of, like 99% of what I'm sharing with you here through your podcast it's a system that doesn't exist anywhere. It's a system that I have developed over the past, years. So therefore, you're gonna hear, if you have been studying Makam for a long time and you come to me and you hear, oh, this is different, it's because it is different, like basically, of course I build on some of the fundamentals of Arabic music, but it goes way, 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 way deeper. Okay, so so all we need here is just a bit of an openness to a new way to engage with Makam and Arabic music. So let's talk about the ability of recognizing Makam by ear. So I've done a recent challenge in which dancers who had no musical training were able to recognize Makam by ear in under 90 minutes. Why? Because this is a skill that is learnable. Okay, it's not a mystical thing. Okay, if you can put pieces of Lego together, you can learn how to organize Makam by ear. Okay, so I know a lot of people just makes it sound like, oh, this is gonna take you 30 years. Nonsense. With the right step-by-step system, of course, you need first of all, you need a rationalization of how it works. You need an intellectual idea. So, for instance, if we are to work on recognizing Makam Hijaz, so we're gonna go, okay, so the second is lowered, the third is raised, so it's kind of like a big step between that second and third. If we try to sing it with feeling it and closing our eyes and just feeling that step, and just repeating it over and over, guess what? You are going to be able to recognize Makam by ear. So there's a lot of not just for dancers, in Arabic music in general, like
Yes.
scaring people from being able to recognize maqam. But it's a learnable skill, so just do not worry about it. It's completely doable. And in terms of why it is important, because of these constant shifts, because these shifts, I'll tell you one thing, these shifts are predetermined. Okay? So in each maqam has a set number of maqam shifts that it can do. And guess what? They're fixed. Whether in Taksim, whether in a piece of music. So it just makes it very easy. Hey, just know the options, familiarize yourself with the options, and then you're gonna instantly match this to this in a second, because again, there's a notion that taqsim and maqam and all of that, you just do it in a moment of pure inspiration. Of course there is inspiration, of course there's creativity, but there is this limited set of options that you can choose from, and that's it. You can't make new options, and that makes it all of a sudden much more doable, and that will mean that you as a dancer can predict those shifts, whether in a piece of music or in a taqsim, because you know what is coming. You know the options. There are not millions of them.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about it. Of course, the number of maqamat that you can shift to differs from a maqam to maqam, because guess what? No maqam is the same as another. No maqam is the same. But we're talking about a very small number. Sometimes it's 3 options, sometimes it's 7. And that's it. We're not talking about hundreds even. So that makes it much more doable, So it's not like just a mystical thing that is unreachable. It's completely doable.
And I love that you use singing to help students get it, right? I mean, this is one of the things that I loved about your masterclass. I saw it and I say, yes, it makes it so much easier. Why are people so afraid? Again, I think the cultural distance always plays a role. And I'm going back, to what I usually hear from dancers. I've been working in the field of Egyptian dance for 25 years. So I started in Egypt and then, doing the international circuit. And then I opened my school. As you can imagine, I heard a lot of stuff from thousands of dancers, So one of the things that invariably comes back is, but I'm not from the culture. I'm afraid of messing up. I'm afraid of sounding cocky, sounding arrogant. Who am I to sing in Arabic? I say, I don't mean you are going to become the next Kulthum. I say, just listen and sing it as you can. You don't even need to be, Maria Callas. Just sing it. It helps, when we are breaking phrase by phrase, independently of the Maqamat. Let's say Kulthum, right? Let's say Alf Layla Layla, and someone is struggling with it. I say, okay, sing it. Yeah, but I'm a very bad singer, and sing it as you can.
Absolutely.
See that the music starts to get into your system, and you feel, right? Instead of just thinking of it in general terms, sing it. Bam, 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 di-ra-ra-ra. Everyone can do this. Everyone can sing this. You don't need to be a singer to do this.
Yeah.
And then once you have it in your system, bam, 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 di-ra-ra-ra, it's much easier to decide, how am I going to respond to this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, there's something that we all forget. Kulthum didn't go to a music conservatoire. Sabah Fakhri didn't know how to read sheet music. Abdul Wahab, maybe in his earlier days, also didn't know how to read sheet music. He most definitely didn't learn maqam from books. This is all a westernized way of engaging maqam.
Yeah,
how did they learn? They all sang. If you look at there's a very interesting clip of Sabah Fakhri, who was being asked in a podcast, how did Umar al-Batush is the most important washah means muwashah writer, and he's a seminal figure in Arabic music. And how did he teach his students? Of course, he didn't ask them to read a Makam book or write it down, or he made them stand, sing while tapping, and he made them like even dance a simplified version of raqs al-samah, a samah dance, which is basically it's a classical form of dance, usually tied to mashahat, in which you are basically emphasizing the main beats.
Yes.
So basically, they had to stand, walk in a circle. Every single person, the singer, the kanun player, the percussionist, the ney player, every single person, they exhibited how they were learning the mushahat, you know? And this did not involve a book. This did not involve going to a conservatoire, okay? It did not involve looking at the score. It involved vocalization, singing, moving with the music. And this is what I do in my, and for me, even as a kanun player, in my students, I just have a golden rule. If you do not have it in the body, you cannot project it on an instrument.
Yes.
If you do not have it in the body, you cannot project it in an instrument. And for dancers, how do you have it in the body? You just need to sing it. This is how you make it go under your skin. And and you don't need like a quality voice. I used to be a bit, my voice doesn't sound very nice. Who cares? First of all, I bet your voice sounding gorgeous. Second of all, nobody cares. Third of all, this is the only way you're gonna get Arabic music, and probably it's also gonna give you some form of catharsis. It's fun. So once you get into it, it's really fun. So it's the only way. Vocalization is the way to embody Arabic music. So don't shy away from it.
I'm going to tell you a story. I think you're going to appreciate this one. When I moved to Cairo, and I moved by myself, so there was no mentor, no impresario, no buffer, no nothing. And that also meant that when I gathered my first orchestra, I gathered them from Cassin with Leil in Haram Street. It's a very bad place at this point. It used to be, in the 70s and 60s, where Soher Zaki used to dance, and Nagwa Fouad and the big names, but it went down the drain, as most nightclubs in Haram Street, but it still has the best musicians. So I hunted for the musicians. I saw the ones who sounded better, and I basically went backstage and got their number and got them to work and started putting the orchestra together. But I did not speak Arabic. I was very ignorant, very unexperienced. So what I did to tell them what I wanted to play in the show was I would listen to a certain music, I would memorize it on the spot, and then sing it to them. Just sing it, and gibberish, even the lyrics. I did not speak Arabic at the time at all. So I just, produced a sound that sounded like, and they say, yeah, Juju, okay. Arfina, okay, Arfin. Okay, المزيكا دي اسمها pa 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 pa. Okay, now I know what is the name of the music. Thank you, guys. But I had no idea what music was that. Who was the composer? Who was the singer? I just listen and I sing to them. This is what I want. What is that? And that's how I learned a lot of repertoire. A lot. Just catching, from the radio, in a taxi, in the street. I say, oh, I like this. Okay. Let me give it to them. I will sing it to them. They will know what it is because they're so experienced, So again, I think we are afraid of messing up. Dancers and musicians, they're probably afraid of not sounding good.
There's a big stigma in that. And hey, and just in my world, I mentor very different sets of people. From kanun players, from people who want to learn Taksim, people who play all sorts of instruments, including voice, and now recently dancers. And every single person, he's like, I've made a mistake, I'm sorry. And I think part of it is because Arabic music has been put on a pedestal. So there has been some kind of shaming around making mistakes. But if you watch my first performance, of going back to my 8-year-old, I probably messed up. Nobody gets it perfect. We learn from making mistakes. And so it's very important to embrace making mistakes and making it imperfect. Even my academy, both my Qanun Academy and my Taksim Academy, we have a golden rule. they record a little video for me. They have 3 takes. If the third take still sucks, they just submit it anyway, even if it's imperfect. Because just to get over this, perfectionism notion, because if you're trying to be perfect, you're gonna get nowhere. So just embrace making mistakes. Mistakes are beautiful. Mistakes show you the ways that don't work. So let's just, focus on what is important, which is making progress through making lots of mistakes, because this is the only way.
It is the only way. It is the only way to grow. I mean, you have the choice not to get engaged with the material and not make mistakes at all, but you're not engaged, so you're not learning. If you are engaged and doing the deed, you are gonna mess up.
Absolutely.
You are. Even as a professional musician, musicians make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Musicians who have been in the craft for so many years, they screw up.
Yeah.
And some of them screw up brilliantly, which also brings us the question that a mistake is not necessarily a mistake.
No,
Sometimes a mistake can be an interesting thing, the beginning of something great, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit hysterical about classical music. I remember that when I was working with my musicians and someone made a mistake with Kulthum, particularly, I had an hysterical attack.
Okay.
I get hysterical, very mad. For me, it's almost like pinching, someone coming and pinching me, because I know the music so well. If something was off, a little beat, a note out, it hurts me, and I look at them like, I'm gonna kill you next. I'm gonna kill you. And I used to tell them, can you do better than the composers who work for Kulthum? No, don't mess it up. I was very hysterical, but they were so creative. And in many situations, not specifically on Kulthum. Kulthum, I really like it by the book, but in songs that were a little bit more open, with structures that you could play with. Because in Kulthum, what I feel is that everything is so well built.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot play with it without ruining it. That's my feeling. But with songs and musical pieces where there is a little bit more freedom, the structure is looser. It's not so locked. When they made mistakes, they usually took that into a different place.
Yeah.
Very interesting place, and I learned from them about not fearing messing up.
Yeah.
And that in itself is an education, that giving confidence to people, say, do the mistakes, do the bloody mistakes, mess up, see where it takes you. What do you learn from there? How do you move from there? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about the Taksim? Because in your teaching, you connect. I've attended your classes, I told you, and you connect in a way that makes perfect sense, by the way. The Maqamat, the art of Taksim, and you teach the structure of a Taksim, how it is built, the different phases. It's like in Egyptian tradition, you have the Baladi Awadi, the Baladi progression. There is a specific structure to that. We know what is supposed to happen first, and then. It's like going on a trip. And what are the bus stops where the bus is going to stop, right? And you connect it all with Tarab. So let's advance a little bit more into the art of Taksim and Tarab. Okay, one thing that called my attention was this question of structure and the way Arabic musicians, as you know, like to improvise and go astray and very often break the rules. So although we assume there is a structure, and there is, to a Taksim as you teach it, and you teach it so clearly, I really love that. You make it easy for people to understand. But what happens when musicians go astray and they mess up? Either consciously, they want to change the order of those bus stops, or they make a mistake. They forget something, they get distracted, they're not focused, whatever. How does a dancer react to the unpredicted changes to the structure of a Taksim? How do we do that? How do we deal with that? What do you think?
That's a beautiful question. So, if you, so in Taksim, if you know the 7 stages, so like, a classical Taksim, of course, each maqam is different. I'm repeating this because it's so important, because, you know, people go like, yeah, Hijaz is like Nahwan, like Ras, like Sabah. No. So the structure of each maqam is different. And then if we take it further, we think of each maqam as a person. So a person that walks in a specific way. And so what does that mean? So if we go back to the maqam tree here, if we know this is the tree of Hijaz, where does Hijaz usually start? You know, does it start here? Does it start here? Does it start here in a Taksim? So usually Hijaz starts from below the root and walks up, and then just walks, you know, if you copy the paste the whole thing one octave higher, then it walks higher and then goes back. So this is like a very, very high level view of how it walks. Of course, I go very deep into this. So this is the first one of the things to understand about maqam behavior. The second thing to understand about maqam behavior is how it talks, which, and of course, again, this is some stuff that nobody talks about. So don't worry if this is something you've heard for the first time in your life. And what is that? It's basically, I call them idiomatic phrases. And these are short melodic phrases that signal to the listener that you are speaking the language of the maqam. Okay? So if we are Hijaz, if I just do a little phrase and end with this, this is gonna tell the listener that, oh, she is speaking the language of the maqam, and therefore she's sounding authentic. Because a Taksim that is devoid of idiomatic phrases is not a Taksim. It immediately loses its authenticity. I had a friend who was a genius musician. He was like from the future, 50 years into the future. And I was supposed to play a Taksim Rast. He was supposed to play a Taksim Kurd. He played a Taksim that was genius, but devoid of idiomatic phrases. And we were in a theater in Aleppo, and Aleppo is the city of Sami'as. These are the gatekeepers that basically gave the stamp of approval to every single big star in Arabic music. If Kulthum didn't have the seal of approval of the Sami'a, she wouldn't be where she is. And that goes the same for every single person that is, the giants of Arabic music. Anyway, so I am freaking out because I know I'm playing for the Sami'a. And this genius friend of mine plays this completely crazy Taksim that has no idiomatic phrases. No clap. My jaw is like to the floor watching him. And then it's my turn, because I am freaked out because I know how important it is. It's my first time playing in an ancient theater in the heart of Aleppo. I played the most idiomatic Taksim Rasti that you can ever imagine. And I got a roar of applause and Allah. And that was this lesson to me in the importance of idiomatic phrases. Because, if you're not speaking the language of the maqam, the beauty of the idiomatic phrases, however, is that you can add your personal touch to. So you can make them your own. And this is where musicians shine. This is where musicians show their character, Because even though we memorize them at the end, in the beginning, at the end, there are infinite ways for me to just say this. So these are just different iterations of the same thing, of the same combination of notes. So this is very important to know about a Taksim. A Taksim is full of idiomatic phrases from beginning to end. Full of them. All right. So what do we do if we mess up? Okay. So a Taksim is a map. Okay. But however, the some of the pieces of the map can shift. You can change order. So without that knowledge of what can shift, where it can shift, you can't do it. So for instance, you cannot switch maqam in the beginning. You cannot switch maqam at the end of a Taksim. Sacrilege. Nobody does that. Red flag. So there is some freedom in terms of okay, so say I am a kanun player, yeah? I am in the fury of playing a Taksim, and one sometimes, my lever goes down because of humidity or whatever, and I'm watching it, and it's like what, going down in slow motion. And so what do? I just go to that modulation, so say, and then I go back to the map that I want to go. And sometimes, you are, and this is something that happens to musicians who are in a very, very, very advanced stages, where you're just listening and reacting to other people. This is particularly in Taksim, that is in conversation with other musicians, you don't know where you're going to end up. You just do not know. And you just have to embrace the uncertainty and just go with it, even as a musician. So, hopefully this gives you an answer.
I think we go back to the question of tradition and the importance of tradition.
Yeah.
The way I put it to dancers is tradition and history and the past and the roots are a box. You can do whatever you want inside that box. And that's the challenge. Whether people think that if I want to innovate, if I want to be creative, if I want to be free, if I want to improvise, then screw the box. There's no box. I don't need the structure. I don't need the roots. I don't need the history. I don't need tradition. Why do I need to know all that? For what? What's the point? It's a big discussion, right? I mean, how important is tradition? Why you should keep it or not? Some dancers, some musicians will disagree with me. I think that tradition and roots are the basis of your creative freedom.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's incredibly arrogant to presume that you come out of nothing.
No,
and you can be brilliant without knowing what came before you. No. I don't care because I'm a genius. I don't care. I'm gonna, really? I mean, really? The roots and the tradition and everything that came before us, that the codes of the language, right? They will restrict you so they can free you. There is freedom within that code. And there is value and wisdom within that code. So when we discard the code and say, no, I just want to improvise. I just want to do whatever pops into my head. I don't need to know the structure of a taksim. I don't even need to know what taksim means. I am a creative dancer. La, la, la. This kind of attitude. I mean, for me, it's just ignorance. And that's my opinion. Of course, it's not a fact. I'm not Jesus Christ, but it's just my opinion. And when I hear you talking about these codes and this language, it's exactly what pops into my head. The importance of knowing the tradition, knowing the rules of the language you're trying to speak with as a musician or as a dancer, because that's a language. It's a language.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then finding your freedom and how far you can go within that language.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I am a composer, okay? And I'm a composer who has broken lots of rules, just specifically in terms of the way how I play my instrument and the way how I have used Makam. Because if you listen to my music, it can be very contemporary and excuse me, and excuse me, I'm gonna go back into that. So, I mean, as a composer who has broken a lot of rules myself, and I just know this key fact, okay? So my dad, when I was little, drilled something in me. He said, Maya, the person who doesn't have a past doesn't have a future. And this is a brain tattoo that I carry on my forehead, okay? And the way I think of myself as a composer, as an artist, in terms of, and if you listen to my works, they can be very, very, very different and very contemporary in both the way I play a very traditional instrument and in the way that I use Makam, okay? But this is never going to be the case if I wasn't grounded. I'm like a tree. I'm rooted in this ancient tradition that goes back to thousands and thousands of years. This is my basis, and from which I can grow and my branches can go and explore all, the musical possibilities that my heart, calls me to explore. But without that, I'm nothing. Without that, I'm nothing. So that's why in my programs, in I teach the classics. Because when you know the classics, the contemporary stuff is a piece of cake. Okay? And, even Picasso, he didn't, all the great artists of the world, no matter whether they're sculptors, painters, they studied the classics.
Of course.
They studied the classic, and based on that, they found their unique voice. So there is a journey every artist has to go through. Study the classics, immerse yourself in them, be, grounded in them, and then you find your unique voice as an artist, whether you are a dancer or a musician. So it's everything. You can't start anywhere without that.
You cannot break the rules if you ignore the rules.
Yeah.
I know it sounds so obvious.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, you cannot go against the tradition, or you cannot answer it with whatever you may call modernization or innovation if you don't know the tradition.
Yeah.
How can you dialogue with something you ignore? How can you go against or distort or elevate or expand from something you ignore? You mentioned Pablo Picasso. At one time I was teaching in Spain, in Malaga, which is the birthplace of Pablo Picasso, and I'm a big fan of Pablo Picasso. He was a terrible man and a genius artist. So I took the students in my dance workshop to the house of Picasso, where he was born and raised, where you have a collection of his drawings, early drawings, very classical drawing, very far away from what he became known for. And I told them, see, this is what we do as artists. This is what you do when you study the tradition of Rex Sherki.
Yeah.
They look at me like I'm crazy. Joana, shouldn't we be in a classroom learning your choreography?
Yeah.
I said, yes and no. Pay attention to this. He knew the rules, he studied the rules, he studied the tradition, he studied what came before, and then he decided to go against it and to mess it up and bring something completely unique out of that. That's what artists do, understand that. This is why knowing the tradition is so important. So then they eventually got it. Now, let's go into Tarab. This is a very polemic subject for dancers. I don't know if you have, an idea of how polemic it is, because again, one thing is understanding what it means. Another thing is experiencing it, right? And the question that always comes back is, I know what that means. How do I experience it? How do I bring it into my dance experience as a default mode, so that it's not something elusive, something that I see in other dances, something that I see in musicians, but instead of being distant, how do I make it my own? How do you answer that question? From your perspective, how is the process of experiencing Tarab?
Okay, so what is Tarab to start with? What is Tarab? Lots of dancers romanticize the notion of Tarab. Yes, it's a mystical experience. Yes, it's a magical experience. I'm a person who has experienced it countless times. It's a blessing when it happens, and when it happens, everything disappears. But hey, Tarab is also a science, okay? So to every work of art, there is a science behind it that can be reverse engineerable, okay? And this is the aspect which dancers are not familiar with. They're familiar with the mystical, but they're not, familiar with how it's created. And Tarab is that moment where you see, basically, it's these peaks, these emotional peaks, these arcs of emotion in the music. And like, for instance, if you are, if you're listening to انت عمري, and now listen to this. Do you see this? This is where she goes, and that is the moment of Tarab. And how many seconds was that? Let's count it. That was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds. And how does it happen? And this is, if you go back to a recording, this is where people go like, Allah, 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 Allah. People lose it. Why? Because this is a shift from a building block that is dark, namely Nahawand, to the Tarab machine that is we already encountered, that is rust. And it's like a little blip of rust, and back to this, back to Nahawand. You know? So Tarab is a moment in the music. I know some people just tell me that, oh, the whole song is Tarab. No. Tarab is moments in the music engineered to create these emotional peaks. And they are scattered, sprinkled all over the song. There are not many of them. You know, they differ in intensity, rather. You know? So this is like the highest peak of Tarab in this song, for instance. You know? But that shift between light and dark, again, if you go back to the example between the different building blocks in Ana في انتظارك, all of these little shifts are creating little waves of Tarab, but then you have this massive explosion of Tarab, which if you as a dancer miss, I'm sorry, you're going to miss the most important part of your dance. So it's very, very important to train your ear and to understand how it's created.
I see your point. It is, as I said, a very polemic subject. I think it also depends so much on the sensibility of the listener. In Kulthum's times, you could see the audience going nuts and fainting of emotion and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I'm not sure if that happens anymore. Egypt has changed so much. I mean, the world has changed so much. And I don't know if we are that available, once again, that available to listen and to feel. But one thing I find particularly interesting in what you say, and this is something that I've been teaching my students since forever, is in the best possible way. Arabic music is so manipulative. It's pure manipulation. Yeah. It takes you where? Yeah. Now I'm going to take you here. You're not seeing it, but let's go. Oh, you catch yourself there and you go, oh my God, how did you do this to me? And then it takes you to a different place. And it's manipulating your emotions and your feeling and your heart. And it's, oh my God, it's so manipulative. And it is so provocative of the heart. This is, one of the reasons why I particularly fell in love with Arabic music, the Egyptian repertoire specifically. It's because it really, really makes us feel different things. And yes, it will take us to moments of ecstasy, moments of elevation, moments of surrender. But once again, independently of the intellectual understanding of those speaks that you teach, and they're very clear, I think, very clear, we must be available to surrender. Because if we're not, we identify them intellectually, but we don't experience them.
Yeah, I mean, with everything you learn, the first level is intellectual level. And then we go into, a deeper level of embodiment and a deeper and a deeper and a deeper until we're fully embodied. So the the intellectual aspect of how I'm presenting is just a gateway to get you into that sense of embodiment, which is the ultimate aim at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's like, sometimes I think people confuse theory with practice, right? I mean, theory can be a gateway into practice, of course. And I think theory is important, especially if you are a professional in the field. I mean, it's non-negotiable, in my opinion. Or if you want to go deep, if you are curious and you really want to learn it well, I mean, why not? Why not understand what you're listening, right? But then, just as it happens with musicians, who are very good with theory, very good, but then practice comes and, oh my God, years ago, I brought my first drummer to Portugal, Hosni Watatak. He died a couple of years ago. Incredible guy, an incredible musician, totally nuts. Never studied music, as you can imagine, learned everything by ear, like most of my musicians in Cairo, by the way, the best ones, actually. They learn by ear.
Not surprised, yeah.
I brought him to Portugal. Rest assured, he knew nothing about theory. I mean, he couldn't care less. He had been playing since he was a child. He was in his 70s. He played the tabla and the darbuka in his sleep. Meshi. So he comes to Portugal and he meets the best darbuka teacher in the country, who is a dear friend of mine and knows a lot about tabla. He has read all the books, he knows all the theory, everything, is an expert, all the information. But they meet in a rehearsal. Hosni Watatak, Min al and this musician who is an expert. I tell you, the Portuguese musician, whom I love so dearly, he ran for his life. He said, Joana, I cannot. It's too good. It's too fast. It's from another world. I can't. I just can't keep up. I can't. And at the time we were supposed to present ourselves together, he quit. He said, no way I'm going to go on stage with this tabla monster. No way. No way. So I think that the theory is an entrance. Absolutely. And I think, again, the most beautiful part of what you do is getting these concepts closer to people's hearts and people's minds, so that they're not so far away. They're not so unattainable. Suddenly they are attainable. They understand. And that's an entry gate for sure. But then there comes sensibility, right? And really feeling it, not only understanding it, but feeling it, experiencing it. And that's another adventure. Now, let's go into the specificity of Arabic music. What makes it so different from Western music? And I know I'm generalizing a lot. It's a very, very vague question, but what are the main differences between Arabic music and Western music?
I will start with just making a comment about what you said. So with Arabic music, you don't need theory knowledge. Okay? Because in Western music starts in a score. Yeah? Arabic music starts with singing and vocalization. Arabic music is an oral tradition. And a lot of people go like, theory, run for your life. I don't want theory. In fact, one of the main pillars of my method is that I teach people, how to recognize Makam and how to understand Taksim and Tarab without theory. Because you don't need it. If you want to go into it, optional. But in Western music, it starts with theory. I studied in a conservatoire, by the way, and I studied hardcore Western theory in addition to Arabic classical music. So I know what I'm talking about. And the main difference, this is one of the main differences. The second main difference is that, in Western music, you have two kinds of scales. You have a minor and you have a major. In Arabic music, you can't say this maqam is sad and happy. There's no equivalent of minor and major. Every maqam is different. You heard me say that about 5 times already. But hey, it is the truth. And you can just need to think about it. There are 9 main maqamat that exist in Arabic music today. Each one talks differently, works differently, because each one is like its own person. And your job is to get to understand them as if, you just become friends with each one of them. And this kind of notion does not exist in Western music, which is why when people come to me, the first thing I say, hey, try to empty your head of Western music theory, because usually what I have to do is I have to do a lot of undoing before we can, to make space for what is true to Arabic music. So very, very, very different musical worlds. So hopefully this gives you just a high level view of how they are different.
I think, from a Western point of view, we're used to black and white, and we're not used to the
shades of gray.
Yes, we're not used to the shades of gray. We're not used to the complexity of the Arabic language in itself. So if we go specifically to the Arabic, right? I mean, you have one word for many different things, and depending on the way you say it, it's gonna mean something else. In the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned intention, how important it is, the intention behind what we do. Absolutely. It shapes the experience totally as a performer. And if you have an audience, for your audience, why you're there, the intention behind what you're doing is so important, right? So intention is important in Arabic language and in Arabic music. And it's not happy or sad, because that's black and white. We want to simplify. We
Yeah.
want either this or either that, but sometimes it's happy and sad at the same time. How about that?
Can
How
be. Yeah,
about
yeah.
that?
Yeah, yeah. So Saba, take for instance. So this is the weeping maqam. Okay. So if you so هو صحيح الهوى غلاب. You know. So skaba يا دموع العين skaba, which means pour down eyes with tears. You know, this is a weeping maqam, but Saba can groove. Saba can groove. Can I call it happy? No. I'll never call Saba happy in a million years. Can it groove? Oh my gosh, it can. So it's very like the nuance about emotion of maqam is far more complex than what dancers have been told. And this is one of the things that really struck me when I started to check out the resources that were available to dancers, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so A, surface level, B, mistake, you know, it's not true. And it just, to put one maqam in a pigeonhole like that, it just, you're going to lose so much nuance and so much color, because one maqam can have many different faces, many different expressions, many different incarnations. And it's important to recognize it's like kind of like the raw clay which you can shape as the composer or the performer to communicate whatever emotion you want. There are not infinite possibilities, but yes, there are possibilities. So it's very important to recognize that.
And not oversimplify, not
No, never.
oversimplify. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that shrinks the experience. It makes it way poorer than it is. I'm listening to you and something is coming to my mind. There is an old clip of Kulthum, I think, in Rabat. I'm going to search for it and put it in the show notes, and I will send it to you. You probably know this. It's on YouTube. She's singing Latlal. And she repeats this, she says
Yeah.
this phrase in different ways, and people go nuts.
Yeah.
And if you really listen to it, it can go in many different directions.
Yeah.
It can be many different things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not one thing or the other. It's not, you know, it's complex and it's nuanced, and you really cannot put it. Oh, this is very sad, so let's be sad. No, this is very happy, so let's be happy. You can't. That's diminishing the amplitude,
Yeah.
the space that is there.
Yeah.
As a listener, you know, as a musician, as a dancer, as a human being receiving that, right?
Yeah.
So I really love that nuance that you
Yeah.
bring to the table. Now, let us know a little bit more about your course, okay, and who it might be interesting for.
Sure. So I was really passionate to start to serve the dance community. I've done like a free training lately, and I was kind of mind blown with the feedback that I received from dancers who were telling me that the resources that have been available to them are very surface level, or you know, not deep enough, or vague, or whatever. And so I have decided to create an intensive called Makam for Dancers Intensive. It's a 2 months intensive starting in October. And basically we're going to dive into all skills that dancers need in a dancer-friendly way, that you don't need any prior music knowledge, you don't need to know how to read music, you don't need to know anything about music theory, you don't need an instrument, you just need your ears and an open mind to a new way to engage and experience Arabic music. So we are going to train your ear to recognize Makam by ear, because that's an essential skill. There are, of course, we all start with the intellectual. I'll give you the tools, and then we work on embodiment. We go into the 9 main Maqamat that create Arabic music today, because hey, there are not 100, not 50. Somebody, and I got an Instagram comment, oh, there are 360 Maqamat. I was like, no. Maybe this is in ancient 16th century, you know, Baghdad, but today there are 9 main Maqamat used in Arabic music today, and they use over and over and over. And so we get to understand their structure, their behavior, both in composed music, and we analyze famous dance tunes, and we get to understand how the Taksim can happen in each maqam. And yeah, so it's going to be a revolution in the world of dance to finally get dancers really, really, really understand the Arabic music they have been danced to, so can they bring that depth, that emotion, that power in their dance and be confident. Because I hear a lot of dancers that go like in a Taksim, they're dancing, they don't know when it's going to end, for instance. You go like, okay, you're smiling, of course you're dancing, you need to smile, but inside me you might think, what's going to happen next? And this is going to change that. You're going to know what's going to happen when it's going to happen. And if waves, the musicians are going to go through the waves, you're going to know how to ride them. So it's all about giving you the confidence, the clarity, and the tools to hear Arabic music like never before. So I'm really excited for it.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post your website in the show notes. People can go there and see what's going on at any time. Okay. God knows what you're going to do in the future. Hopefully different projects, new projects.
Yes.
If they want to join that program, they join that program. If they want to join something else, they will join something else. I'm going to leave it open so that people can find you and can join you at whatever point you're at. I'm also going to share the podcast newsletter link and all information about our school, everything in the show notes as usual. Now, a final question or a couple of final questions. In your perspective, what makes an exceptional musician and what makes an exceptional dancer in this field of Arabic music and dance?
Okay, I am not a dancer, I'm not a dance professional, but as an artist, honesty of expression, and because a lot of musicians, a lot of dancers are trying to be copies of somebody else, and I think there is no value in that at all. If I'm teaching someone, I want their voice to come through, their unique voice there, because that is, that's the biggest gift that you can ever offer the world, really, in my view. And from a dancer perspective, I think it's just being a true mirror to the music and just bringing it to that extra dimension of depth and power and expression, because at the end of the day, dance is music made visible. And yeah, so I've seen incredible dancers that just, bring me into a state of Tarab, through their power and expression. And I think that's always a beautiful gift to the world to witness.
Beautiful. So now we're going to close with a quick ping pong question and recommendations. I'm so curious about your recommendations now more than I was. So let's start with the ping pong. Basically, I'm going to throw a word at you, ask you for your favorite something, and you shouldn't think too much. It's the first thing that pops into your head, okay? That's the game. That's how we're going to play it. So ping pong, favorite word?
Prayer. Prayer is powerful.
Favorite feeling?
Love.
Favorite food?
Uzi. Yum, yum, yum. Uzi is wonderful. It's a beautiful dish. Syrian dish.
Favorite music?
Oh God. All good music. All honest, beautiful music.
Okay, good answer. That's a good answer. Favorite place?
Inside. In my center. And with my loved ones.
One wish for yourself?
To be of true service to the world in this life.
One wish for the world?
Peace.
Now your recommendations. Oh, one positive change everyone can do to empower themselves today. One simple positive change to feel stronger.
Start talking to yourself differently. Tell yourself you can do, if Arabic music is something you want to do, you totally can, you do it, and not only that, it's yours.
I love that. Recommendations, books that you recommend. Now, they can be directly connected with Arabic music or not. Okay.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go with something completely different because it's also kind of like journeys into the self and self discovery. It's The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
Mm-hmm. Music that you recommend. Let's suppose, okay, let's go niche, let's go specific.
Okay,
Dancers who want to start sharpening their ears and their listening abilities and their musicality, where do they start?
I think dancers know a lot of Egyptian music, but also dancers. It's very important for them to know the Aleppo school of music because this is all part of a school of music called Al Mashriq piece of music. So they say this is the music between Cairo to Aleppo. That it's connected. So dancers are more familiar with the Egyptian side, not familiar with the Syrian side. So if you
True.
start with Qudud Halabiyeh by Sabah Fakhri, this is a well of infinite beauty, and I highly recommend you check out.
Okay, beautiful. A movie that you recommend?
Okay, Dreams by Akira Kurosawa. It's one of the most beautiful. It just awakens. It just unlocks something in my soul. So yeah, it's a gorgeous watch.
Okay. I will recommend something that I have recommended before to another guest that I think you're going to fall in love with. I discovered this recently. It's Mariam Touzani. She's a Moroccan director, and she has released Adam and the Blue Kaftan. Watch those.
I will. Thank you.
I was shocked when I saw those movies and I said, oh my God, what is that? What is that? Just
Yeah,
take
I
my
will watch.
word, take my
Promise.
word, take my word. Okay.
I will.
Now, one word that uplifts your soul.
Surrender. We're not in control of anything.
Very good. Okay, so we usually close with my guest asking me anything they want. We don't know
Okay.
each other, so I know
No.
it can be weird for you to ask me, but I mean, any curiosity you may have, anything you may like to ask me about any subject, dance
Well,
related or not.
okay. How did you describe the moment in which you fell in love with Ras Sharqi?
Okay. So there are different levels of falling in love, right? There are
The first
different
one.
depths. Yeah. Okay. Um, the first time I knew I was hooked, but I did not know how hooked I was yet, was when by chance I listened to the Ney in a workshop, in a dance workshop, in a festival, ethnic festival with different kinds of dances. So I was going with a group of actors. I did the Conservatoire of Acting, so I was supposed to be an actress, not a dancer. Although I danced all my life, and I've been trained as a dancer since I was a baby, basically. But I never saw myself being a professional dancer. I thought I was going to be an actress. So as an actress, I went to this festival just to have fun, and destiny played its cards. So there was a place where they were doing Egyptian dance with Egyptian music. I heard the ney and I thought, I'm home.
Oh, beautiful.
That's it. From there, many other moments of deepening, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you go deeper and deeper and deeper. Then, you start to see the bad stuff and the ugly side of it and the business side of it. And then, once I moved to Egypt and I had to face the real life of a professional Oriental dancer in Cairo, I saw stuff I wish I had never seen in my life, but that also contributed for an unconditional love, you see, because once you know the worst and the
Yeah.
best in that field, you decide, is this a love for life or not? And it is for life. So many different moments and many different people who have made me fall in love with it. You mentioned the Mwashahat. While I worked as a performer in Cairo, I also worked and studied with Mahmoud Reda. who created the Reda Troupe. So he was a lover of Muashahat. I got to know the music through him. He would bring me the bobine, you know, old bobine. I don't even know how you call that in English. We would listen to it. Ali Ismail, a lot of stuff that was so dear to him. And all of those experiences made me fall deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in love with it, you know. So it's a love that gets under your skin, and when you think you have reached the maximum, you haven't. There comes something that shows you, oh, you love it even more.
We're gonna go deeper now.
Yes.
Prepare for the ride.
Maya, thank you so
Thank you so much. It was a
much.
joy.
Oh my God, this was amazing. Thank you for your time. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
generosity. Once again, all the information about your work will be in the show notes. I hope to meet you soon. I wish you all the
Likewise.
success, all the joy in the world. And our conversation was even better than I thought it was going to be. Have to be
Oh,
honest.
that's lovely. I enjoyed that very much. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you. And guys, let us know what you thought about the episode, please. Mwah. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you, my love.
I am going.